Welcome, everybody. As more people join us, you can go ahead, introduce yourself to each other in the chat, and then we're going to open up our open activity here, which will get you started into our Padlet. So if you see the short link on the screen, there's also a QR code if you would like to use another device to enter into our Padlet. The prompt for you is, when you're thinking about engaging willingly and openly with others, what would this look like, sound like, and feel like in your classroom? So head on over to that Padlet, use the link there to add ideas to our wonderful Padlet. And so engaging willingly is the way we start our knowledge to action course. And we do a lot of modeling of things. We're following the developmental designs model, if you're familiar with that. So we do Y charts. We describe how we want it to look, sound, and feel in our classrooms. And so head on over to that Padlet. The link is in the chat for adding in, what does this look like, sound like, or feel like in your classroom? Engaging willingly and openly with others.
And be dreamy about it. What does your dream classroom look like if all of your students were engaging willingly and openly with others? What would you see, hear, and feel? Yeah, okay.
All right, looks great. And so we will be heading back to that Padlet and using those resources as well. So um, we'll definitely be going back and touching base on those things. Keep those things in mind. We're dreaming big today, thinking about the classrooms we'd love to see, and we'll talk about all the tools that will help us get there. So let's get started on our introductions.
We've got a big crew here, as you can see. We're working a couple streams, so we'll share who we are.
Hi, everybody. My name is
You're
my
good.
name is Molly Dengler. I'm a professional learning facilitator at World Savvy. The global competency that I love the most takes shared responsibility and cooperative action. We have done this in partnership with Ella Baker for 3 years now, and we have the privilege of being in partnership and coaching teachers and providing professional development so that we can make more student-centered classrooms. Outside the school, I'm a bilingual advocate and a mom of a 3rd grader, and I professionally use this model in my class by a different name and help develop resources to support educators in implementing knowledge to action from pre-K through 12th grade.
Hey, everybody. My name is Anna Lane. So you're starting to hear words that you might be wondering about. Ella Baker is the school where my colleague and I teach. And we are in a partnership with this nonprofit World Savvy, where Molly's at. And they have been helping us take these dreams we have, like having classrooms where all students engage willingly, and help us really get results around those. So you can read my about me, been teaching for a while, and for a long time, I have had these dreams of, having a classroom where all my students are collaborating and having a classroom where my students are doing these investigations and really solving problems. And it's taken me 5 years to get closer to some results. So that's what we're here today to share, the journey from dream to some results and some of the tools that helped us get there.
All right. Looks like we're welcoming in a lot of new folks. Maybe they're just coming over from the keynote. That was fantastic if you're able to see that. So hello, everybody. I'm Sam Quincy. I'm a proud Minneapolis Public Schools graduate and now teacher. I've been teaching in Minneapolis Public Schools for over 10 years, and I've been at Ella Baker, formerly Jefferson Community School, for 9 years now. I had my first World Savvy connection back in 2013 when I was doing my student teaching at Roosevelt, and just loved the global fair that they were doing, and it's gone from there. And so we'll be diving into the way Lane and myself have implemented this knowledge to action course, and hopefully bringing our dreams to reality here. So if you've ever wanted to center youth voice, empowering youth voice, and really inspiring youth, this is the place for you. So I'm going to pass it off to Charlene.
And Queen, I think, first.
Oh, Queen first. Here's Queen.
Hi, hello. I'm a student at Ella Baker. My favorite global competency that I like to implement in most of my classes is continuous learning and reflection. About me, as I already mentioned, I'm a Ella Baker. I I'm researcher of restorative justice and an enthusiast and curious and devoted learner here at Ella Baker. About K to A, I took K to A few months ago, I believe first and second quarter, and I really enjoyed the experience as it involved questions, thoughts, and like the desire to find solutions to problems that I see affecting my community and in my area. And yeah, that's really what it's about.
All right, one last introduction and welcome to everyone who's joining us. Here is our last intro.
Hey, sure. Oh, yeah.
Go on.
Hi, my name is Charlene, and one of my favorite global competencies that I did in K2A with Lane and Quincy was investigates the world. And I'm a seventh grader at Ella Baker. I've been at Ella Baker since pre-K, and I personally come from a family of immigrants. And I really like K2A because it was a fun class because we got to create our own ideas. And I did K2A with Queen.
All right, so welcome. You might have missed some of our introductions, but there's 5 of us here and you're going to hear from all of us. So no worries if you're just joining. Some words you're hearing that we want to give you a little grounding on. So K to A is knowledge to action. That's this class that we've been refining over the last couple years. And this class really centers around another jargony term, global competencies. Global competencies are things like engaging willingly and openly with others. They are skills that don't go out of style, in the words of my colleague over here, Molly. They're the tools of being a good person, as Elder Dave mentioned this morning. So we have designed this class centering global competencies, and we're going to talk about kind of what that's meant for us. It's a little different than standards, and so it's been powerful. And we're also going to center around this other framework called the design process. You may be familiar with this. Basically, it's the idea of seeing a problem in your community, in your world, in technology, and learning more about it, refining your understanding, prototyping solutions, iterating, and sharing out your ideas with the world. We are really all about the idea that we all have big dreams and that it's hard to get to the results. So Molly, can you give us the next? So you're going to see the interplay as we talk today of this big framework, this big idea going from problem to solution, along with the skills and attitudes students need to get there that we've targeted. And instead of just talking about these big ideas, which I love and have been doing for many years, we are going to really center the results of the amazing work that Charlene, a student with us today, has been able to do using this process and these skills. She's going to walk us through her design process. And please, as you are listening, write questions in the chat. Think about what you want to know more about, because we want these results to speak for themselves.
So this design process I did with one of my other classmates. And for our topic or issue, we chose immigrant students with with low self-esteem. We chose this issue because we both personally come from really low income immigrant families. Our sources were interviewing people at our school, and our stakeholders were Miss Crawford, which is our 6th grade Minnesota Studies teacher, Miss Jane, which is our 7th grade US Studies teacher, and Gleppy, which is our principal. And next time I wish we both could have interviewed Miss Nina, which is our school social worker. Our root causes for this issue was we saw educational flaws, bullying, and teachers not knowing how to work with immigrant students. And our root cause focus was lack of care for immigrant students. And me and my partner, we thought about making posters that would attract awareness in our area. So when we were brainstorming, we thought about making posters, flyers, cards, and social media posts. And we were prototyping. We decided to go with making posters. So how could this help students' needs? Is that I could help a lot with their self-esteem, and they can feel better about themselves. Feedback that we got was from Miss Bishop, which is our EL teacher, and Miss Maskey, which she works with World. And feedback that we got was including spreading information. We could do this for many, and they were really excited about the idea. And the things that we changed was that when we were making our posters, we decided to add more information. So our next steps and takeaways was partnering with the school social media page. Also, we make them and we share with our school page. In our group, we could design, um, design, um,
Social media posts?
design post, and our EL teachers could um, contribute by also helping us make the social media or teach us about different cultures since they work with many students who don't speak English.
Lovely. And so with that, so Charlene has just taken us through their group's design process. And so we wanted to open it up to you all to maybe put some questions in the chat. And we'll try to get Charlene answering some of those. We'll also have Queen here to chime in from the student perspective. And then we'll move forward, getting into the nitty-gritty and the tools and the resources that will help you implement this kind of design process in your own classrooms. So anyone have any questions for Charlene about the design process that she went through? All right, so we're seeing things pop up in the chat. Charlene, do you see that one? What did the design process feel like for you? What were some ups and downs?
I think the ups was that when we were interviewing, we got a lot of different perspectives on it. The downs were that me and my partner had a hard time agreeing on what we should do for prototyping. Should we do posters? Should we do social media posts? That was our down because we couldn't agree on a singular on what to do.
Nice, but again, engaging with each other, that's awesome.
Queen, do you want to speak to that at all?
What did it feel like going through the design process? Either the interviews, the prototyping, what do you think?
What it feel going through the design process? I mean, it felt like I was actually making an impact on my community, as like the design process really makes you work harder to understand like where these issues are coming from, root causes, as Charlene mentioned, and it really like helps you like realize that a lot of things go on in your community, and it's like a wake-up call kind of how many problems can be going around you, stuff like that. Yeah, I really liked it.
Then maybe back to Charlene here. Charlene, what was a proud moment you had when we were thinking about the design process? What were you proud of?
When we got to talk with Miss Bishop, which is our EL teacher, who helps kids who come from all around the world who don't speak English, and they need extra help.
Right, yeah. So we're seeing other questions about success. So yeah, finding some success in the interviews. Nice. Yeah.
Queen, any other moments of success that you'd like to speak to in this process for you?
I feel like a moment of success for me is like reaching out to people who are like not even in our area. Like, do I mention her?
Yeah.
Like, I wrote a formal email to Leon Caspi, Miss Leon Caspi. She is a not superintendent, restorative justice practitioner over at Seattle Public Schools, and like reaching out to her and her really replying and being excited to basically be involved in my prototyping process. It really like it made me feel like again like I was actually doing something, and it was a really proud success of mine that somebody that I have that kind of pull on somebody that to actually come in and you know talk with me. So yeah.
All the way from Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, these interviews have been something students find a lot of success in, and it's really exciting, empowering work. So let's get into the work that we can support you in to make this happen in your classrooms, make these dreams come true. We've got a big old drive folder. This is a really nice selection of the resources we've used. We tried to keep this folder concise and really useful. So if you jump on over to that resource folder, that link will be in the chat as well, and we'll come back to this link later on throughout the session. We'll keep on touching base on that link, so you're not going to lose it. Don't worry. And I'll pass it over to Lane to get us started. We're going to walk through our 4 competencies that guide our work.
So global competency, again, a word we've said a couple times, so I'm just going to keep mentioning it. These are these skills that don't go out of style. It's a way of framing teaching that, you know, to use more jargon, blends in SEL and project-based learning and, you know, a lot of really important standards that thread through a lot of disciplines into these kind of packages that we have found really helpful as a way of laser focusing our practice. So these are the 4 global competencies that we have iteratively over years shaped this course around. Because we found things that weren't working. We wanted students to collaborate, but we weren't making it happen. So we became obsessed with this first competency. How can you adopt shared responsibility and take cooperative action with a group? And let me share with you a little bit of what worked for us. So we use this language over and over and over and over again. And we actually have the benefit of having this school-wide, but just to say it over and over again in a course makes a big difference. So students see this slide repeatedly, they know the language. And I just want to make a connection. We opened this whole session by asking you about your dreams of a classroom where students engage willingly and openly. And we call this shared responsibility cooperative action 1 kind of like level 2, like engage is day 1 in the course. Can you be next to people? Acting cooperatively is kind of level 2. Can you do cool stuff together? So what does that mean? Well, we realized that we were saying you needed to do these things, but we weren't being explicit enough. And so we got more explicit. You need to be able to work with everyone. So we named that as a measurable target, and then we made it fun. So we came up with this dorky idea, but it worked brilliantly, the Cooperate Passport. In the Cooperate Passport, we preloaded all the names of every student in the class. We've also done a version where students wrote them in themselves. And the goal is for every student, for a grade, you're going to have to do something with every other student in class, and you are going to have to reflect on how it went with them. Now, we want to always, when we're teaching a new idea, try to make it fun before it gets academic, right? So we did this through games. A first game that we just played again yesterday, because we kind of came back from a little break, is group juggling. And I'm not going to explain a bunch of games to you, but start thinking about what are cooperative games. So group juggling, you're tossing a ball back and forth, making eye contact, saying names. It's simple, it reconnects. When the cold wind blows, I'm going to flip it over to Queen because she was reflecting that this was one of her favorite games.
The reason why I really like this game is because I think you might know, but the game really involves you, a person in the middle saying a cold wind blows if you've done so and so, or like you have so and so, stuff like that. Basically making you share a bunch of stuff about yourself. I really like this game because it like encourages everybody to work together. It encourages everybody to be comfortable around each other, because let's say you don't you want to talk to this person but you're too nervous or you're too timid too. This game you can relate to people through this game, as it encourages everybody to really share stuff about themselves, and it personally helped me like build new friendships, like talk to people, and by like bringing up what they've said in the game, and yeah, it's had a positive effect on me.
And we've got Charlene who wants to give a shout out to our last game, group juggling.
I really enjoyed group juggling because so then we were able to name the people. So then because in the game you have to name the people, and then you have to like name the people, and they can't, okay, they can't name the name. And I really enjoyed it because like you have to remember everybody's name, and you have to remember everybody's name while throwing the ball.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's these simple things. Pictionary races is the silly like two sides racing to draw various Pictionary things. You can populate these online easily. Scattergories, the middle schoolers love it. I love it. It's a great game and it promotes teamwork. Simple again. Whatever games you love or work well with your students, we'd highly recommend. The Cooperate Passport is ready to go in our folder. So if you're like, gosh, I want to try this at the end of this year or next, it's worked really well for us. Oh, one last thing. So to really make something happen in a classroom, what I'm learning and trying to share with you, because it's worked for me, you got to target it explicitly. Ideally, you need to make it a fun way to learn it, and then also valorize it, right? Our culture values a lot of the wrong things, and students get get affirmed for these values that aren't the ones we want sometimes. And so we're trying to create a culture in our classroom where you get affirmed explicitly, shouted out for engaging, for sharing, for using names, for working with new people. And we just do that at the end of the day, real quick every day.
All right. So I'm going to take us through our second global competency, the investigate the world by framing questions, analyzing and synthesizing relevant evidence, and drawing reasonable conclusions that lead to further inquiry. So this is a really big one for us. It's a very large competency, and we actually do this one through the design process. And so the design process that Charlene took you through, the results that she showed, is kind of the final piece that encapsulates all of this competency. And this is Charlene and I our favorite, where we're investigating the world through questions. So we take students through the design process of choosing topics that matter to them. I think you've heard from our student presenters here that was a really big piece for them. We get down to root causes. And I think that's a piece where, keeping it close to home and understanding the root causes and really identifying with them, either through interviews, they had some aha moments there, and really identifying those root causes can really center the student's work and keep it authentic. And so we did this by our first look at this design process in our course is through a practice design process that we take the class through, and we do our playground. So this is an opportunity I think that could be a great practice for any site, any school, any setting. If you've got a playground, or maybe if you've got a missing playground, you can even have that be your design process. So we begin, we take the students through the design process by first analyzing and looking at relevant evidence by going out and looking at our own playground. So we've got students out there with clipboards, taking notes on what they see. And a lot of students, like Charlene, for example, has been at the school since pre-K. So they have a lot of connections with the playground, but we really try to pull them back and say, look at this as a investigator, as an explorer, and staying curious and looking at it with fresh eyes. And so then we also dive into hear from our experts in trying to keep it close to home. It really helps students attach to it, but then we do elevate it by going to the experts. So the first one we look at is Marjorie Allen. She was an architect of adventure playgrounds in the 1940s and 50s in England. And this is a great opportunity for students to see a different take on the problem or the issue that we're facing, and learn from an expert. And so all throughout this, they're getting empowered and really energized by the real work. This is not theoretical. This is, we're actually looking at our playgrounds and real playgrounds around the world. So we actually look at Marjorie Allen as a design process example. We go through stakeholder vocabulary and other vocabulary pieces. So really raising the rigor there through vocabulary. And all of this can be found in our practice packet. And so this design process, but to redesign your playground, is in our resource folder as well. And so you can take a look at that packet and make it match your needs. So it does take them through the stakeholder analysis. We talk about stakeholders and the proximity to location. So we found just throughout all our work in this K-8 process that keeping it close to home and looking at stakeholders and issues close to home and close to school really helps keep students focused and energized in that work. They get chances to do interviews like we've heard. So we interview John Fisher, an architect of playgrounds. If you can try to bring community members in or experts in, I think that's really proven effective for us, and our students really elevate and show their most mature self, especially when they're interviewing those fourth graders. And a little shout out to the fourth and fifth grade class in our school, because then, they see these seventh and eighth graders doing this empowering work. And then the fifth grade actually takes on this design process themselves as a class. And they present things to our students as well. And then they'll present to the superintendent. It just really, yeah, and they just presented to the school board the other day. Maybe heard out of that for accessibility on playgrounds. So this work keeps on building on itself and really empowering students all throughout the school. And then a little quick shout to not just our interviews and speaking with real people, but then also looking at texts. We found that that's some of the most nebulous work. And, as a social studies teacher, we do research projects and you're thinking about gathering all the sources you can. But we find in this work, especially as we're working through the process, it's first time in practicing this and building the capacity in students to really simplify and focus on a single text, and really learn how to, read deeply, read closely. We practice that. We practice not getting tricked by certain texts and certain, things you'll find in articles, and really focusing on the root causes. And then I think one of the best parts, and the reason we choose the playground, is so that when we get to the prototyping stage, they get to build, and we try to do this early in the course to make it fun, to make it engaging, and show that you're building solutions. So we build prototypes. They're using all kinds of building materials. They're, like Charlene mentioned, they're talking with their groups and having to come to consensus about what their plan's going to be. So that prototyping is a really energizing and engaging process as well. And that brings us to the prototyping feedback. We keep on looping around. So we actually touch base again with some of those same stakeholders we interviewed their initial ideas. And that's part of the feedback process, and keeping students engaged by bringing people into the classroom is a great success we found. So again, just a quick shout to the tools. We'll put those tools back in the chat here soon. And I'll pass it off to Lane for the third competency.
So thanks for sticking with us. We know we're talking a lot. We just think it is useful to hear from teachers that something's working for. We desperately want to share it because we want to hear the stuff that's working for you, the other side. So this one, I'm going to briefly say, forming opinions based on exploration and evidence is really about the nitty-gritty of research. And as an English teacher, I'm all about reading, but we have found some of the magic of this comes from thinking super level, like what do real researchers do? And so here's what we boiled it down to. It is this incredibly simple process of writing down what you already know about a topic, and then what you want to know next, and then going out and trying to answer those questions, and then coming back and adding what you know again. And we have this concentric circle template to just show the students how their knowledge grows iteratively. So I model this for students with an issue that personally bothers me. Imagine you're walking through a school near you and you see a lot of food waste. Drives me nuts. We don't compost at our school. We don't even recycle. It's another story, but I have personal passion I bring to this. And then we go out and we help students think about what are multiple perspectives they can learn from. You've heard this before. And we brainstorm, as Quincy mentioned, who are the people that are closest to us, that are most likely to answer our formal emails, and also dream big. We've had the superintendent come into our classroom. We've reached out across the country to people who have responded. So here's what it really looks like. This is from our actual Knowledge to Action class right now, our student groups who are studying things like passing time, hunger, skipping, student-teacher connections, and xenophobia, and the actual people that they are reaching out to. We put this up on the board. Once they send their formal email, they get their person posted. Once they have a scheduled interview, it turns a certain color. Once the interview has happened, it turns another color. And so I just put this in front of you because a couple years ago, I would have never dreamed I was capable of this. And yes, we have co-teachers, which is an incredible privilege that every single classroom should have. I'm saying that out loud because I know some of you are like, oh my God, I never thought I could do it. But it's amazing what students can do if taught to write a formal email, what people want to give to students in terms of their time and generosity, virtually or in person, and how exciting and empowering it is when students get out there and start conducting interviews with real people, and these conversations that stick so deeply in their minds. Queen was talking to Miss Leon Caspi. Charlene, did you want to give a shout out to one of your interviews right here? Okay, if not. Okay, yeah. But you can see like it's really messy and we get people that don't respond, and we literally have groups at different parts of the classrooms doing interviews while other groups are doing different things. This is not a direct linear thing, and I am not necessarily always comfortable when it is not a pre-planned thing. I'm being honest with my strengths and my weaknesses. But this has been magic for us. So then you come back and you add what you know now, and that is kind of this research process that I think is really graspable for a student, but is also exactly what they'll do when they go out and get PhDs.
And throughout all these processes, the whole design process and everything we're doing in class, we're committing to the process of continuous learning and reflection, and building up the capacity in students, but also, having them see their own capacity building as well. So again, we go through our process of going through and really elevating these competencies and doing them and giving them a lot of attention, doing it right. So going through that why chart again and understanding them deeply. And the reflection one we do throughout the course, we do rubrics for our different competencies. So the rubrics begin with understanding those look fors, those I can statements, and really building those up. So we write those with students into this rubric we've got. Again, these rubrics will be in the tool folder we've got. And you can, change these to any kind of targets you've got. I've found a lot of success with these, no matter what the project or what the target is, even in my social studies content class. So building meeting the standard criteria, and then setting goals, and again, coming back to it and reflecting on and how we've done and our successes and where those successes have gotten us. So I think you've heard it from Queen, the reflection and thinking about how important that work is to her. Here, let's jump ahead, Molly, to looking at those rubrics close up. So yeah, here's a close up of these rubrics. So like I was saying, you can change it to whatever the target is that you're working on. But the real key is those setting the meeting the standard indicators. And then we elevate the strengths that students are already coming in with. So we have students write in to the exceeding the standard box what their strengths are. So what might be a strength for one student when it comes to gathering evidence is, oh, I'm really outgoing and ready to interview folks. Well, that actually might be something that another student is working on, and that's their area of growth. So they might put that in there, partially meeting the standard box, and kind of we're framing these things as areas of growth and strengths. And then, as you can see down at the bottom, so we've got our goal setting, and then the glows and the grows is that reflection piece. So glows being, where did you do really well when it came to your goal, and the grows, where can you grow next time and work on this particular competency. And just a quick shout to how we kind of will invigorate that effort in the class. Things like having share outs, putting it back on students to actually share out their answers, and holding that expectation, the students rise to it, right? We're thinking about complete sentences in your goals, and coming around, we've got our little stamp and the feedback we're giving, so students know, like, oh yes, I'm doing this well. I'm giving all my effort, and being recognized for it has really elevated these rubrics as well.
I think modeling it too, right? Like when you share student work, you invite authentic stakeholders to the showcase and to the presentations, and we also give glows and grows, and that can be private or that could be public. So modeling it from all directions.
And speaking of student work.
Yeah. And so, finding a lot of success and just energizing is sharing student examples. So knowing what we're looking for, and then finding that rubric that shows what we're looking for, and so students know what's expected of them. And we talk about the why. You know, how did this help this person go further, advance, and grow themselves. So you know, students want to grow, they want to improve. So put it back on them, and they'll rise to it.
Totally.
All
right.
right. Well, that brings us
Back to Earth.
Yes, back to Earth. We've got all these ideas floating around. Let's look at some tools.
Yeah. So, well, actually, before we get to tools, so, you know, again, I'm good at talking. I can talk about my values all day. I can make a beautiful slide deck, but does it actually produce any results with students, with the real students you have? And we just want to, again, turn it back over to Queen now, and Charlene, if she wants to chime in, just to say what this class meant to you, how it might have been different than others, what you remember, and maybe what you wish other teachers would do more of.
To me, this class was unique or different because it really put they already mentioned, we did prototyping, we did a design process that helped made us build a prototype like at first without any feedback, just from research. Then our stakeholders would come in and they would like help give suggestions, like make us tweak our prototypes to like eventually evolve into like actual solutions that are effective and innovative. This class I remember most is obviously bringing stakeholders in, but it's also our presentation at the end where we got to share all of our hard work and how we like came to that solution, and maybe share our hard work and really broadcast that. What do you wish other teachers would do? I wish other teachers would really like involve their students more. I know that sounds weird, but not by just doing the work, but like actually having a say in what your solution is going to be, because in this class everybody has their own unique suggestions, own unique solution where they think will be most effective for the issue that they choose. I wish that other teachers would like really bring the kids on like what they want to do, what do they feel like is most effective, what do they feel like is most will affect the issue the most. And yeah, that's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
So we'll toss it over to Charlene for a moment too. Charlene, what do you think? How is it different from other classes, and then what big memories?
What's different from the other classes is that we have to like engage with other classmates. Like we're not only with our friends, we have to like engage with other people that we like maybe not talk to, or maybe we don't even know.
Nice. Yeah, I think the connections that people have made in class is awesome,
Mm.
and it can keep you coming back to class and keep you energized.
And something that I wish like other teachers would do is had to let us have like our kind of like our own opinion also. Be like kind of let us have our own opinion.
Yeah. And then what was any like deep connections that you like what does it feel like when you get that deep connection with a class of a topic that you want, or an opinion that you're sharing? How does that change you in a class?
I get excited.
Excited? Nice. Get it going, right? And we're
Mhm.
making change.
Yeah.
All right. Like Lane had mentioned before, you know, this was not this is not where we started. Uh, we we've come a long way, and that's actually kind of what inspired us to even think about presenting at this conference today. To see all the work, the changes we've seen. So if you've ever had that thought of, you know, I want to amplify student voice, I want to involve students, but not sure how, or when I do it, it goes this way. How can I change it? We're hoping that some of the tools and some of the experiences we've had can help you in that work. So if you look here on our slide, for each of these competencies that we've talked about, we've come a long way. Things like imploding groups and having students say, oh, I can't work with them, I won't work with them. to actually, like Charlene's mentioned, meeting new people, working together, working with other people that you might not have thought you would have, seeing each other differently. And then I think when I'm going to the forms opinions based on exploration and evidence, just really surface level reading of sources. And now we see interviews are a huge point of pride, and then that leads to just even deeper research in text form, and they're willing to go deeper into a text once they're committed to that issue. And then, we had talked about those rubrics and seeing those glows and grows, and those have become more concrete, and, pushing students to think about it, to think and reflect. And then once they see the success, they're more likely to do it the next time. So now we're seeing more relevant, specific goals and a lot more feedback opportunities that we've given them. So we were hoping to, have you think about, is it maybe choosing one of the competencies, thinking about, I really want to do exploration through evidence. Maybe it's the reflection piece, maybe it's that whole design process. What are some things you hope to see that you've been working towards, or that you would love to see in your classroom when it comes to these competencies? You can put those in the chat or think those to yourself, and then we'll get to our tools, and we'll give some time for application here.
Yeah. So in short, this last 15 minutes, gosh, I've gone to so many great presentations in my life and had so much ambition to do things. And then I go home and I'm tired. So with these last 15 minutes, we challenge you, make a choice. Consider using one of these tools in here. A bite-sized way to start would be a Cooperate passport, like have some intentional, we work with everyone time. A bigger lift would be something like a teacher-led stakeholder interview towards maybe eventually having students do outreach on their own. But see if you can see one of these in your scope. Look at the materials now, download them now, and use this time to actually apply. We're also here for questions, but unless anyone else has anything to share, this ends our formal presentation.
There's a private chat.
Hello. Yeah.
So if you want to put in ideas in the chat, or even, come off mute if you'd prefer, and we can talk about different elements here. And then in the Padlet, there's all kinds of things as well, including an opportunity to share your contact information and look at our contact information to stay in touch. All right. Thanks, Brad. Oh, and then I see someone coming off mute. The floor is yours.
I am off mute. Am I the one that you see coming off mute?
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Okay. I'm at Modern Well co-working space in Minneapolis. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's a super cool place. I have no lack of passion for teaching and education. And my background is over time has evolved to taking executive function skills, so emotional regulation, planning, metacognition, all of those great big words that you amazing students, by the way, are using when you're putting together your presentations, and you're engaging with these stakeholders and interviews. And I've connected those skills to leadership skills. I am wondering if in your conversations, you talk about, we know them as 12 executive function skills, but do those ever come up with your students? Like kind of the iceberg model, here's what's going on up here at the top, and this is why you're so successful, or maybe why you're struggling?
Sure, I love that.
A lot of words.
Yeah, no, and we had looked into the executive function kind of framework in years past as well. So I've definitely incorporated some of those concepts. I think maybe specifically, showing up in the reflection pieces, and thinking, and maybe the cooperative passport as well. There's a lot of places for reflection there and seeing each other. And then the iceberg model that maybe our students would be familiar with is like the cultural iceberg, and kind of seeing your visible identities and your hidden identities and things. But I'll definitely try to incorporate that with that other idea of hidden invisible things that are whatever it might be for the identity.
Well, and this is what I would also say. So make this reasonable. We shared 4 global competencies with you. there's like 35. And they cover an incredible range of all these things that we want our students to do. We recommend going with 2 or 4 to start, but I don't know if Molly, you want to speak to kind of the whole framework at all more, but it covers an incredible array of things. And we do have the full global competency matrix, excuse me, in our shared folder.
I can't type fast enough. I'm gonna be looking at those 35.
Yeah,
Just saying.
here's Molly from World Savvy.
Yeah, and to address Jennifer's question too, how do you work with World Savvy? So World Savvy is a national nonprofit, and we partner with schools and comprehensive school partnerships like Ella Baker's been invested for 3 years now. But we also do strategic programs and changemaker hubs. So just last week, we were in Saginaw, doing a changemaker hub with over 150 students, administrators, educators, all together in a room, reimagining how their education system could work better for students. And so that was a really powerful way for us to get directly in touch with students. Although most of my work is working with coaching teachers, doing professional development, and we work with every teacher in the building. So at Ella Baker, every classroom teacher from kindergarten through 8th grade receives coaching, and we work in feedback and observation cycles, as well as professional development. I know that you saw a question in the chat, Queen, that you wanted to talk about from Brad. Brad asked, what do youth bring that adults need to hear, and what do adults bring that youth need to hear?
I feel like what the youth bring that adults need to hear is that even though some students, they may seem disengaged, or they may seem like they don't really like isn't like not as enthusiastic about the class, and like maybe a little bit put off, I feel like those they it's not like they don't have the passion, they don't have like they're not invested in it. I feel like they don't know how, and I feel like the youth bring like new suggestions, like new ways of maybe like innovative strategies that work for them, and like a perspective on how not from an adult's perspective, but from a student's perspective of how like that how the classroom could be more welcoming or more effective for students. Stuff like that.
I attended your presentation, Queen, and something that I learned was, what does a restorative justice space in school look like for you, and what could it look like in your context?
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about that? About the prototype that you designed for your K-8?
About like the grant?
Yeah, the peace room.
Oh, do I tell them like what
Maybe just the prototype, right? The strategy.
the strategy I used was, of course, my first prototype wasn't like perfect. My first prototype was like really different from my final prototype, which was the peace room of how when other students feel aggravated, disengaged, maybe angry, or like have a tendency to like really maybe disrupt the classroom, stuff like that, that they could go to a peace room which like calms them down, which they can talk throughout. Like if let's say 2 students are having a conflict, they could go to the peace room and they could talk it out, but without directly, coming at the perpetrator, or like and the victim would their voices would be heard in a sense, and how everybody could like work together to find a solution, maybe prevent this in the future, stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Are there any more questions? You see, they have a lot more stories to tell, so keep them coming, and do look at those resources and think, how would I use this in my context? Maybe your context is different. These students are talking about their elective experience in knowledge to action class, and ideally knowledge to action is something that's done every day in every subject, and we don't have siloed classrooms, and it's not that add-on, right? But small steps, and there are instances where across the K through 8 spectrum at Ella Baker, this is being embedded, this design process and prototyping is being embedded to existing content as a way of uncovering content, as opposed to covering it and then doing that fun project at the end, right? So If you have any more
Hi.
questions, now's the
I
time.
do
Oh,
have a
Go
question real
ahead,
quick.
Jacqueline. Yes.
I didn't want to interrupt you. I commend the students. I commend the adults that are working with them. I work with youth and I also work with parents. Parents and families, and the cohesion of families is my passion. So that leads me to think and wonder how much are the parents brought into the fold of this per se? That's my question.
I have a-
And I'm asking, and I'll give a preface, I'm asking that due to the fact that so much is taught to the children in a silo, and they go back home and they have all this energy and all this excitement, and they have really great things that they're working on and can do, but the family or their parents have no knowledge of this. That kind of will pull the student down or make the student have to work harder at what they're doing or get uninterested. So that's why I'm asking about the fold in of the parents.
Sure. Yeah, and I think, to speak to kind of how that family involvement, parent involvement, and community involvement can actually inspire and maybe energize students to jump into the work. I'll pass it off to Charlene. I know that's a part of her the background of her project last year.
I personally
Wow. What'd you
learned
say,
a lot-
buddy?
I personally learned a lot from my family. My family comes from a country where it's low income and healthcare education it's really horrible. So when they came here, they had to work really hard to get where they are today. So I learned a lot from them, and they've told me a lot of like stories where like nobody wanted to be near them because they were different because they couldn't speak English, or like they couldn't speak English and communicate with other people. Just be They couldn't communicate with other people. And myself, I couldn't speak English either till I started pre-K. Even when I started pre-K, I struggled a lot with my English. None of the kids wanted to play with me because I couldn't communicate with them. Nobody wanted to sit with me. Nobody wanted to be my friend. So I kind of like take from that experience, and I like to share with other people because I know what it feels like to not have a friend or not have parents to be able to help me to do simple things like homework specifically.
Exactly. Thank you, dear. I commend you. You're awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Jacqueline.
And I would just say briefly, like, I think that's an opportunity for us. I mean, there are things that we still need to improve. We need to help students have more time to actually bring their projects into action in the world more. And we've done a lot better with bringing in stakeholders at multiple stages, whether they're being interviewed or they're giving feedback on brainstorm ideas or feedback on prototypes or an audience at the end. But we haven't invited parents. So thank you for I need to do that.
Yeah.
We need to do that.
You're welcome. And maybe I'll have to connect with you. That's my business.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my
We're all
business.
invited.
Yeah,
Come
thank
give
you.
feedback to students. We need you.
One small move that we've been playing with the Elevator is creating a WhatsApp group where parents can connect with each other. And it's kind of been like the testing ground for what you see in the chat right now, the comprehensive school partnership community and caregiver model. It's been our practice ground at Elevator and learning through this WhatsApp group where parents can directly connect with each other and ask questions like, I wore Halloween costumes to school when I was a kid. Why can't we wear Halloween costumes to school now? And thinking about like, what is the root reason behind that? And how can parents and families dig in to these changes in the education system that at first glance might not make sense? And think about how does that, what are like the cultural framework behind that in terms of making everyone feel like they can engage openly and willingly with each other in a context as diverse as Elevator.